Now, there's one of the biggest myths in this whole thing is the idea that, that these migrants come here to take away our jobs. And I'm not talking about the idea that the jobs they do are jobs that Americans don't want. That's only a small part of it. The main part of it that nobody talks about is that the jobs that these migrants do actually create other jobs that are higher level jobs for Americans. Look what happened in Postville. The plant was unable to replace the employees that it lost to the raids. They tried by every means. As a result, their losses started mounting and they went bankrupt. They had to close down. I had occasion to interview the controller of the plant back in October, before the plant closed. It declared bankruptcy in November. And he told me, we haven't been able to operate at more than 45% capacity. The loss of business for a 150-mile radius is something to the tune of $250 million a year. Now, we're talking about American family farms, the people that raise the chicken, that raise the cows, that produce the feed for the animals, that sell equipment, that sell insurance for the equipment, the truckers, the entire business chain. Those were jobs that depended on this plant that depended on undocumented migrant labor.
In your view, what would be the best reforms?
Well, we need to have a prioritized path to legalization. And what I mean by that is we have to make US-born children the absolute priority. And it's very simple. And this is something that has happened before in history, and it stopped happening after 1996, after the Immigration Reform Act of 1996. US-born minors should be assigned an American citizen who serves as a guardian ad litem to make their rights heard and considered in our legal system, including the right to claim their parents, so we can have family unification. Secondly, the minors who came in illegally with their parents, they haven't committed any crime. They were minors. We're punishing them for the mistakes of their parents. These children and youngsters, they deserve a path to residency. They also deserve an opportunity to go to college through the DREAM Act. So there are things that we can do. Then we have the family reunification issue, which is a matter of human rights. And it's a matter of American values, quite frankly. You cannot put a price tag on that. That's another priority. Yet another priority are those who have seniority, who have been in this country for 10, 15, almost 20 years in some cases, and are still undocumented. And finally, those who have contributed greatly to this country, who have served in the armed forces. There are countless people, migrants, who have served in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and yet they've had their siblings, their parents deported. So there are things like that that you can establish a priority and say, okay, let's give these people a path to legalization on a priority basis. Now, there are some people who don't have a right to be here. There are some people who, if they had a right, they've lost it because they have committed crimes. Those people should be deported, no question. So we're not talking about this amnesty or this, that's a false conception. We're talking about looking at classes of individuals that have certain rights and that our country has interest in having these people be legalized and brought out of the shadows. Having almost 12 million people undocumented that we don't know who's who is a security nightmare. So the whole system is backfiring miserably from a security standpoint.
As this crisis becomes more acute, do you see a growing sentiment that something must be done? And are there advocates out there that are emerging?
Absolutely. We're talking about a social crisis of very, very deep proportions. In the 19th century, the biggest social crisis was slavery and the fight for abolition. It even led to a civil war. In the 20th century, the big social issue was civil rights. And the civil rights movement was very, very broad and very deep. In the 21st century is migrant rights, particularly the human rights of migrants. And that is a very, very profound social issue, is a crisis, and is the biggest social problem of our generation.
Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not going to be easy. I think that things are going to improve under the current administration. They're not going to improve enough. They're not going to improve fast enough. I think that immigration reform is still a long way off. I think that Congress is still very divided on the issue. There's a lot of lobbying, a lot of disinformation, and it makes it for a very, very, very difficult debate. But I think that there is a willingness now in this administration that we didn't see before. I think that the rates are going to subside. I think that human rights are going to be respected a little bit more. And all of that can happen without legislation. That can just happen in the sense of the orientation and the prosecutorial discretion of not only the president, but executive agencies like Homeland Security. We have a new Secretary of Homeland Security. We have a new team. We have a new Secretary of Labor. So I think that, that these things can happen. But the cornerstone of comprehensive immigration reform is a fair and just temporary transnational workers program.